The pills hit the bottom of the trash can with a sound I'll never forget. A soft rattle, like bones settling. My daughter-in-law stood over the bin, hands on her hips, looking at me with something close to disgust. "Stop faking your illness for attention, Margaret. It's pathetic." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My chest felt tight, not from the heart condition those pills were meant to manage, but from the weight of being dismissed so completely by someone who lived under my roof. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I walked to my bedroom, closed the door, and made 2 phone calls. One to my lawyer, one to the police. What they found in her medicine cabinet 3 hours later changed everything, but I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand how I ended up there, watching my life-saving medication disappear into the garbage, you need to understand how I got to that kitchen in the first place. My name is Margaret Louise Whitmore. I'm 67 years old. For the last 40 years, I worked as a school librarian in a small town outside Pittsburgh, the kind of place where everyone knows your name and your business. I was the kind of person who believed in quiet dignity, in handling things privately, in giving people the benefit of the doubt even when they probably didn't deserve it. I believed in family loyalty. I believed that blood meant something permanent, something sacred. Those beliefs almost killed me. My husband Richard died of a stroke 6 years ago. We'd been married for 38 years, together since I was 21 and he was 23. The morning he died, he was making me breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, same as every Sunday. We'd had a routine, a rhythm built over decades. He hummed while he cooked, old Beatles songs mostly. That morning, it was Let It Be. I was upstairs when the music stopped. The silence felt wrong somehow, too sudden. He collapsed by the stove. I found him there when I came downstairs, the pan still warm, eggs congealing on the plate he'd already prepared. The paramedics said he was gone before he hit the floor. Massive stroke. Nothing anyone could have done. That's what people tell you when they want you to feel better about the unbearable. It doesn't work. After Richard passed, the house felt too big, too quiet. Every room echoed with absence. His coffee mug still sat in the cabinet, his reading glasses on the nightstand, his jacket hanging by the door. For months, I couldn't move any of it. Touching his things felt like erasing him, and I wasn't ready for that kind of finality. Our son, Michael, had moved to Chicago years before for work. He was our only child, and after Richard's funeral, Michael started calling more often. At first, I thought it was grief bringing us closer. He'd call every Sunday evening, ask how I was eating, whether I was sleeping, if I needed anything. I'd lie and say I was fine because that's what you do. You don't burden your children with your loneliness. Now I realize it wasn't grief. It was guilt. Michael hadn't been home in 3 years when his father died. He'd missed Richard's 60th birthday, claimed work was too busy, missed our anniversary dinner, said he couldn't get the time off, missed Christmas twice in a row, once because of a work conference, once because Vanessa wanted to spend the holidays with her family in Arizona. We'd understood, or at least we'd said we did. Richard used to defend him. He's building his career, Margaret. We raised him to be independent. But I could see the hurt in Richard's eyes every time Michael made an excuse, the disappointment he tried to hide behind understanding. But after the funeral, the calls came weekly. "How are you, Mom? Are you eating? Are you lonely?" Questions that sounded like concern but felt like something else. I should have recognized the pattern, the setup. But I was grieving, and his concern felt like a lifeline in an ocean of emptiness. When he suggested he and his wife, Vanessa, move in with me just temporarily while we save for a house, I said yes immediately. I told myself it would be good to have company, to hear voices in the kitchen again, to not eat dinner alone every night, watching the chair where Richard used to sit. I told myself family should help family. I told myself a lot of things that turned out to be wrong. The first month was fine, almost pleasant. Vanessa cooked dinners, Michael mowed the lawn, and we fell into a routine. I gave them the master bedroom upstairs, the one Richard and I had shared. I moved into the smaller guest room. It seemed like the right thing to do. They were young, building a life. I was just one old woman who didn't need much space. Looking back, that was my first mistake. Giving up my room, giving up my space. It set a precedent I didn't understand at the time. The shift started small. Vanessa began rearranging the kitchen. You don't mind, do you, Margaret? I just function better when things are organized my way. I didn't mind. It was just cabinets. Then she rearranged the living room. Then she asked if I could start eating dinner in my room sometimes because they needed couple time. I said yes to that too. I told myself I was being accommodating, flexible, understanding. What I was actually doing was disappearing piece by piece in my own home. My health had been declining since Richard's death. Stress, the doctor said. Grief manifests physically. I developed arrhythmia, an irregular heartbeat that required daily medication. Beta blockers, blood thinners, a small pharmacy I took every morning and evening. My pill box sat on the kitchen counter, a weekly organizer with little compartments labeled Monday through Sunday. It was routine, methodical, necessary. Without those pills, my heart could go into dangerous rhythms. The cardiologist had been very clear about that. Vanessa noticed the pills immediately. One morning, about 2 months after they'd moved in, she picked up my pill box and examined it like it was evidence of something. That's a lot of medication, Margaret. Are you sure you need all this? I explained about my heart condition, about the arrhythmia, about the cardiologist's orders. She set the pill box down with a little smile. If you say so, just seems like a lot for someone who looks perfectly healthy. That comment stuck with me. Someone who looks perfectly healthy. As if illness required visible proof, as if my body needed permission to struggle. I brushed it off. Vanessa was young, maybe 32, probably didn't understand how bodies break down after 60, but the comments continued. Little remarks, dropped casually into conversation. You're taking pills again? Didn't you just take some? Or, my grandmother lived to 90 and never took a single prescription. She said doctors just want your money. I started taking my medication in my room to avoid the commentary. It felt easier than defending my medical decisions to someone half my age. But even that wasn't enough. Vanessa started asking questions about my finances. How much was the house worth? Did I have a will? What would happen to my savings when I passed? Michael would tell her to stop, but weakly, the way you tell a dog to stop barking when you don't really care if it listens. I answered vaguely, uncomfortably, sensing something predatory beneath her curiosity. One evening, Michael sat me down at the kitchen table. Vanessa was there too, her hand on his shoulder like a puppet master. Mom, he said, not quite meeting my eyes, Vanessa and I have been talking. We think it might be easier if we helped manage some of your accounts. You know, just to take the stress off you. With your heart and everything, you shouldn't have to worry about bills and paperwork. I told them I was managing fine. I'd been managing fine for 6 years, managing fine for 40 years before that. Michael's face fell, but Vanessa's hardened. We're just trying to help, Margaret, but if you don't want our help, that's fine. We'll back off. The words were agreeable, but her tone was ice. After that conversation, the atmosphere in the house changed. They stopped including me in dinners, stopped asking about my day. I became background noise in my own home. Then came the morning with the pills. I woke up early like I always do, around 6. The house was quiet in that particular way early mornings are, when the world hasn't quite remembered itself yet. I'd slept poorly, my heart doing that flutter-skip thing that meant I needed my medication. My pill box was on the counter where I'd left it the night before, next to the coffee maker. I was reaching for it, my hand already extended, when Vanessa appeared in the doorway, already dressed, arms crossed. She must have been waiting for me. I realize that now, waiting for this exact moment. We need to talk about your pill situation, Margaret. Her voice was flat, administrative, like a manager addressing an underperforming employee. My pill situation? I repeated, confused. My brain wasn't fully awake yet, still foggy from the restless night. Yes, it's concerning. You're taking all these medications, but you're not even sick. I've been watching you. You walk fine, you talk fine, you don't seem to be in any pain. Honestly, I think you're addicted. Or maybe you're just faking for attention." The accusation was so absurd, I almost laughed. "Vanessa, I have a heart condition. These aren't optional. My cardiologist—" "Your cardiologist is probably overcharging you," she cut me off. "Do you know how much money you're wasting on pills you don't need? Michael and I are trying to save for a house, and you're throwing away hundreds of dollars a month on this nonsense." I felt my pulse quicken, that irregular flutter I'd come to recognize as dangerous. "These pills keep me alive, Vanessa. This isn't up for debate." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to something colder. "Everything in this house is up for debate, Margaret. You're not the only one living here anymore, and frankly, your little pill routine is disruptive. It's always time for my medication, always making everything about you and your health. It's exhausting." Before I could respond, she grabbed my pill box off the counter. I reached for it, but she stepped back. "I think you need a break from these. A reset. Let's see how you feel without them for a few days. I bet you'll realize you've been psychosomatic this whole time." "Give those back, Vanessa." My voice came out steadier than I felt. "No." She walked to the trash can, lifted the lid, and dumped the entire contents of my pill box inside. A week's worth of carefully organized medication, gone. Then she tossed the empty pill box in after it. "There. Now maybe you'll stop being so dramatic." I stared at the trash can, at the little colored pills scattered among coffee grounds and banana peels. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. From the sudden crystalline understanding that this woman, this stranger living in my house, thought so little of my life that she could throw away my medication like it was garbage. Because to her, it was. And maybe, I realized with a sickening clarity, I was too. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I walked past her, down the hall to my bedroom, and closed the door. My hands were still shaking when I picked up my phone. The first call was to my lawyer, Helen, a woman I'd known for 15 years. She answered on the second ring. "Helen, it's Margaret. I need help. My daughter-in-law just threw away my heart medication. All of it. And I think I'm in danger." There was a pause. "Stay in your room. Lock the door. I'm calling the police right now. Don't engage with her. Do you have any of your medication left? Any backup supply?" I checked my medicine cabinet. I had 2 days' worth in an old bottle. "Enough for now." "Good, take it. The police will be there within the hour. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Margaret, this is elder abuse. Do you understand? What she did is a crime." The words elder abuse hit me like cold water. I'd heard the term before, seen it on news reports, but I never imagined it applying to me. I was educated, financially stable, cognitively sharp, but sitting on the edge of my bed listening to Helen's steady voice, I realized abuse doesn't discriminate. It just finds the cracks and widens them. The police arrived 40 minutes later. 2 officers, 1 older man who reminded me of Richard, 1 younger woman with kind eyes. Michael and Vanessa were in the living room when I opened my bedroom door. Michael looked confused. Vanessa looked annoyed. "What's going on, Mom?" Michael asked, standing up. "Officers," I said, my voice shaking only slightly. "My daughter-in-law threw away my prescription medication this morning. It's in the kitchen trash. I need it documented." The older officer nodded. "Can you show us?" We walked to the kitchen. Vanessa followed, her voice sharp. "This is ridiculous, Margaret. You're calling the police over some pills? You're insane." The female officer turned to her. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step back and let us do our job." I pointed to the trash can. The officer pulled on gloves and began carefully removing the pills, photographing each one, documenting the scene. Michael stood in the doorway, pale. "Mom, what is happening? Vanessa, did you actually—" "She doesn't need them, Michael. She's been faking this whole heart thing for sympathy. I was helping her." The older officer looked up. "Ma'am, are these prescribed medications?" "Yes," I said. "I can provide the prescription bottles." They're all legally prescribed by my cardiologist for arrhythmia and related conditions." "And you threw them away?" he asked Vanessa. Yes, but she doesn't actually need them. It's all psychological." The officer exchanged a glance with his partner. "Ma'am, interfering with someone's prescribed medication is a serious offense. We're going to need to ask you some questions." That's when Vanessa's composure cracked. "You're seriously going to arrest me over this? She's manipulating all of you. She's probably not even sick. Have you seen her medical records? No? Exactly. This is harassment." The female officer stepped forward. "We're not arresting anyone right now, but we do need to conduct a full investigation." "Ma'am," she turned to me, "do you feel safe in this home?" I looked at Michael, my son, the boy I'd raised, the man I thought I knew. He was staring at the floor, unable or unwilling to meet my eyes. "No," I said quietly, "I don't." Helen arrived as they were finishing the report. She took one look at the scene and immediately pulled me aside. "Margaret, we need to get you out of this house. Tonight. Do you have somewhere you can stay?" "This is my house, Helen." "I know, but right now we need to ensure your safety while we build a case. I'm recommending a restraining order against Vanessa, and we need to do a full financial audit. I'm concerned there may be more going on here than medication tampering." The officer overheard. "Ma'am, if you're willing, we'd like to do a full sweep of the home. Sometimes, in cases like this, we find other evidence of abuse or neglect. Do we have your permission?" I nodded. "Yes. Search whatever you need." What happened next unfolded like a slow-motion revelation. The officers searched the house methodically, room by room. They started with common areas, photographing, documenting, then moved to bedrooms, my old sewing room, the guest bathroom, the linen closet. Professional, thorough, missing nothing. When they reached the master bedroom, my old bedroom, the room I'd surrendered, the younger officer called her partner over. Her voice had changed, gone from routine to urgent. "You need to see this." We all went upstairs, Michael trailing behind, Vanessa silent and pale. The master bathroom was large with double sinks Richard had installed himself 20 years ago, and a spacious medicine cabinet with mirrored doors. The officer opened it carefully, methodically, like she was defusing a bomb. Inside were dozens of pill bottles. Not mine. Not a few. Dozens. They were crammed in, stacked on top of each other, some spilling over. Vanessa's name was on every label, but the addresses were different. Different doctors, different cities, different states. The officer started photographing each bottle, checking prescription dates, counting pills, her face growing more serious with each one she examined. Oxycodone, hydrocodone, Xanax, Adderall, Ambien, Tramadol, lorazepam, Soma. The list went on and on. Some bottles were nearly full. Some were empty. Some had dates from last month. Some from last year. It was a pharmacy, hidden behind a mirror in my house. "These are all from different doctors," she said, frowning. "Different pharmacies, too." "Ma'am," she turned to Vanessa, "can you explain why you have multiple prescriptions for controlled substances from different providers?" Vanessa's face went white. I have chronic pain and anxiety. I need those." The officer kept counting. "This bottle of oxycodone was prescribed 3 weeks ago. It should have 30 pills. There are 11 left. This Xanax prescription is from a doctor in Ohio. You're a Pennsylvania resident, correct?" Michael was staring at Vanessa like he'd never seen her before. "Vanessa, what is this?" She turned on him, desperate. "You know I have issues, Michael. I've been open about my pain. You've been supportive. You never told me you had this many prescriptions. From different states?" The officer's radio crackled. She stepped into the hallway, spoke quietly, then returned. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come down to the station with us. We have some questions about these prescriptions. There are irregularities that need to be addressed. You're arresting me for taking medication." That's what she does. Vanessa pointed at me, her voice rising to a shout. She takes pills all day, every day, and nobody questions her. But I take medication for legitimate pain and suddenly I'm a criminal? The older officer's voice was calm but firm. You're not being arrested right now, but we do need to verify these prescriptions. Doctor shopping is a felony. So is obtaining controlled substances under false pretenses. Vanessa looked at Michael. Tell them I'm not a criminal. But Michael said nothing. He just stood there, looking between his wife and his mother, finally seeing what I'd been living with for months. The officer escorted Vanessa downstairs. Helen put a hand on my shoulder. Margaret, this is bigger than we thought. If she's been doctor shopping, forging prescriptions, or diverting medications, this becomes a criminal case. But it also means she was projecting. She accused you of faking illness and being addicted to pills because that's exactly what she was doing. The realization settled over me slowly. Vanessa hadn't been concerned about my health or my finances. She'd been worried I'd discover her secret. Every accusation she'd thrown at me was a mirror reflecting her own guilt. The financial questions weren't about helping me. They were about gaining control before I found out who she really was. Michael finally spoke. Mom, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I looked at my son, really looked at him. He seemed smaller somehow, younger, like the boy who used to cry at the first day of school. Didn't you? I asked quietly. Or did you just not want to see? He flinched. She told me you were being difficult, that you didn't like her, that you were trying to come between us. And you believed her. She's my wife, and I'm your mother. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. The police finished their search, bagging evidence, taking statements. Vanessa was taken to the station for questioning. The officers told me someone would follow up within 24 hours. Helen stayed after they left, sitting with me at the kitchen table while Michael retreated upstairs. What happens now? I asked. Now we document everything. The medication tampering, the financial manipulation attempts, the hostile living environment. And based on what they found upstairs, Vanessa's going to be facing serious charges. Doctor shopping, possession of controlled substances, obtained illegally, possibly more depending on what the investigation uncovers. Margaret, you may have just stopped something much worse from happening. What do you mean? Helen chose her words carefully. People who are addicted to pills, especially opioids, can become desperate when their supply is threatened. You had prescription medications in this house. If she'd escalated, if she'd started taking yours, or forging your prescriptions, or worse. We've seen cases where elderly family members end up in the hospital because someone was siphoning their medication. You caught this early. The thought made me nauseous. I'd been living with someone capable of that. Sleeping down the hall from her, eating meals she prepared, trusting her in my home. I want her out, Helen. Today. We'll file for an emergency restraining order first thing tomorrow morning. Given the circumstances, I'm confident we'll get it. In the meantime, I'm calling my daughter. She's got a spare room and you're staying with her tonight. This is my house. I know, but tonight let's just ensure you're safe. Please. I agreed, not because I was afraid, though maybe I should have been, but because I was tired. Bone deep, soul tired in a way I hadn't felt since Richard's funeral. Helen's daughter, Sarah, arrived within an hour. She was a nurse, kind and efficient, and she packed a bag for me while I sat numbly on my bed. Michael came to my door as I was leaving. Mom, please, don't go. We can figure this out. There's nothing to figure out, Michael. Your wife threw away medication that keeps me alive. The police found evidence of drug abuse in my home. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is who she is. She's sick. She needs help. Yes, she does. But that's not my responsibility, and it shouldn't have come at the cost of my safety. I'm sorry. The words hung there, insufficient and too late. I know, I said. But sorry doesn't give me back the months I spent walking on eggshells in my own home. Sorry doesn't undo the feeling of watching my medication get thrown in the trash. Sorry is just a word, Michael. And right now, I need more than words. I left with Sarah. Helen followed in her own car. As we pulled out of the driveway, I looked back at the house Richard and I had bought 35 years ago. The house where we'd raised Michael, where we'd celebrated Christmases and birthdays, where Richard had died making me breakfast. It didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a crime scene. I stayed with Sarah for 3 days. During that time, Helen worked quickly. The restraining order was granted. Vanessa was prohibited from coming within 500 feet of me or my property. The police investigation expanded. They found she'd been visiting multiple doctors across 3 states, claiming different ailments, obtaining prescriptions under slightly altered names. She'd been doing it for at least 2 years. Michael claimed he hadn't known, and maybe that was true. Or maybe he'd been willfully blind, the way we all are when facing something we don't want to see. The real shock came on day 4. Helen called me at Sarah's house, her voice tight. "Margaret, you need to sit down. The police found something else." "What?" "They executed a search warrant for Vanessa's car. In the glove compartment, they found copies of your financial documents, bank statements, investment accounts, the deed to your house. And they found a forged power of attorney with your signature." The room tilted. "What?" "She was planning to take control of your assets. The signature is a decent forgery, but forensic analysis will prove it's fake. Margaret, if you hadn't called the police when you did, if this had gone on much longer, she might have succeeded. You could have lost everything." I thought about all those questions Vanessa had asked about my finances, the casual inquiries that had felt invasive, but not necessarily sinister. She'd been gathering information, planning, waiting for the right moment to strike. And I'd been the obstacle. My insistence on maintaining independence, my refusal to hand over financial control had stood in her way, so she'd tried to paint me as incompetent, as addicted, as mentally unstable. If she could establish that narrative, who would question a loving daughter-in-law taking over her elderly mother-in-law's affairs? "They're adding charges," Helen continued. "Attempted financial exploitation of an elderly person, forgery, fraud. Margaret, she's looking at serious prison time." I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt sad. Sad for Michael, who'd married someone capable of this. Sad for the version of myself who'd welcomed them into my home with open arms. Sad for Richard, who died never knowing how wrong things would go. "What about Michael?" I asked. "He's cooperating with the investigation, claims he had no knowledge of any of it. The police believe him, or at least they can't prove otherwise. But Margaret, you need to think about what happens next. With your house, with your relationship with your son. I don't want him living there anymore." "That's your right. I can draft an eviction notice. Given the circumstances, we can expedite it." "Do it." 2 weeks later, Michael moved out. He didn't argue, didn't push back. He packed his things in silence while I watched from the doorway of what used to be my bedroom. "I really didn't know, Mom," he said as he carried the last box to his car. "Maybe you didn't, but you chose not to see. That's almost worse." He loaded the box, closed the trunk, and turned to face me. "I don't know how to fix this." "You can't. Some things, once broken, don't go back together the same way." "Are we broken?" I thought about that. About the little boy who'd held my hand on the first day of school. About the teenager who'd helped me plant roses after Richard's first heart scare. About the man who'd called weekly after his father died, voice full of concern I'd mistaken for love. "We're changed," I said finally. "Whether we're broken depends on what you do next." He nodded, got in his car, and drove away. I stood in the driveway until his taillights disappeared. Then I went back inside, walked through each room, and reclaimed my space. I moved back into the master bedroom. I rearranged the kitchen the way I liked it. I put my pill box, a new one, filled with fresh prescriptions, on the counter where it belonged. And slowly, over the following weeks, I began to feel like myself again. Vanessa was eventually charged with 14 counts, including drug trafficking, forgery, fraud, attempted financial exploitation, and reckless endangerment. The reckless endangerment charge came from throwing away my medication, which the prosecutor argued could have caused serious harm or death. She took a plea deal, 10 years with possibility of parole after 7. Michael attended the sentencing. I didn't. I'd said everything I needed to say. The months that followed were quiet. I learned to be alone in my house again, but this time the solitude felt different. Not lonely, but peaceful. I joined a book club at the library where I used to work. I started seeing a therapist who specialized in elder abuse. She told me that what happened wasn't my fault, that manipulators are skilled at finding vulnerabilities, that saying yes to family doesn't make you weak, it made you human.